introverted frame of mind.
Hmm.
So certainly the media in this country, is affected by common purpose. And I'm going to come back to my experts. My experts are now telling me that they are totally aware of neuro-linguistic techniques being used in the presentation of news, whether it's visual or it's audio on the radio. So this is happening. The other thing I'd mention, because I'm going to encourage listeners to go and have a look for themselves, but about 2 years ago, Julia Middleton was suddenly involved with a new organisation called the Media Standards Trust.
All right.
And this organisation, which conveniently had offices within the Common Purpose offices, was going to be working with all of the British media to ensure its fairness and openness and impartiality. To which I say, I suggest to people that what Common Purpose is going to do with the Media Standards Trust is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
They are going to work to close down our national media to ensure that it's only towing the desired political line. There's another point to the Media Standards Trust, and that is that when we look at the trustees, the directors, if you like, we again find this totally elitist structure with people from very high corporate positions, and again including the major international banks, including Rothschild.
Yeah.
So on one hand, we have Julia Middleton saying that, well, really, she's a very ordinary lady, and she's just trying to help people in local communities. But the next minute, we see her sitting shoulder to shoulder with major international banking figures. And we then start to say, why are the banks so interested in national media?
Yeah, that's right. And this is, again, you mentioned this is the Media Standards Trust. Is that right?
Yes, Media Standards Trust. I'm afraid I can't remember the website off the top of my head, but you will find it if you just put Media Standards Trust UK in.
Yeah, it's simply Media Standards standardstrust.org. That's the main website for them.
Have you just found it?
I just found it. Yep, absolutely. It was a link from Wikipedia.
Can I just ask you how long we've got? Because I really would like to be able to cover the children, because we've just touched on education.
Let's do that in the last few minutes here, then, Brian, and finish up on that note. I think that would be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, from their own literature, it is apparent that Common Purpose is extremely interested in school children, and they're running a number of programs where they are particularly targeting children of about the ages of 13 upwards. One of the key programs is called Your Turn, and within the programs, Common Purpose leaders are taking groups of children and they are talking them through society, changes in society, and they are particularly explaining to them the benefits and advantage of the European Union. So at its simplest level, we are starting to see children being indoctrinated with a political agenda through the work of Common Purpose. Now, what is a certainty is that the average parent has no idea that their children are being exposed to this sort of training. We also know that within UK there are a number of training techniques which are being used, and in this instance I am not specifically talking about Common Purpose, but we know that young children, perhaps as young as 6 and 7, are being exposed to what's known as creative visualization. And this is where groups of children are taken on journeys in their mind by visualizing images and places. In fact, creative visualization is a form of neuro-linguistic programming. And I have a document document which was written by a school teacher who was given some of this training in creative visualization in Leeds with some of her colleagues. Leeds is a major city in the centre of UK. And what she reports is that after the training, some of her colleagues experienced very dark, dangerous images in their minds, disturbing images which they couldn't get rid of. And she had then written a letter complaining to the local authority that she was very worried about what this training could do to the minds of young children. Now, I followed this lead up, and I have documentary evidence establishing that this training, as described, did take place. I was eventually able to talk to the trainer, who was a gentleman who simply had a degree, a combined degree in psychology and geology, but he had been running this form of neuro-linguistic training. And when I challenged him on any dangers of it, he said, well, maybe 2%, 2 to 3% of people might have some form of adverse effect. Now, if we are looking, which we most certainly are, at hundreds of thousands of school children being given this type of neuro-linguistic training, we should expect to see quite large numbers of children starting to show adverse mental health effects. And this is happening, although the British media at the moment is not reporting it. I can tell you that in South Wales, within a very limited geographic area, over the last 3 years, 29 young people have committed suicide. In Northern Ireland, again, totally unreported in the British media, we are finding geographical clusters of young people committing suicide. And at the moment, there is absolutely no central government interest and action into establishing the cause of these suicides. I know this is a terribly serious subject to end our talk on.
Right, yeah.
But I'd like to say to you, Hendrik, that when I began looking at common purpose, I reverted to being a military officer, and I quickly came to the conclusion that what we were actually looking at in British society, at least, was a deliberate attack on our society.
Yeah.
The attack is psychological, it's social, it's economic. And all of the research that I have done, and I am now supported by a lot of people who include ex-military people, ex-police officers, ex-legal people, what we are seeing is an organized conspiracy to actually collapse the democracy in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And the people who are driving this are of the same malicious mentality that were prepared to create the Bolshevik Revolution or the rise of the Nazi Party with the subsequent actions. This is not some form of benign new political process. These are extremely dangerous people who are herding us like animals into their vision of a new world order.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt at all that in Britain at least, the society that these people are looking to create will have absolutely no regard for the personal safety, health or welfare of the average individual, because they are elitists and they regard us as animals. I know that is an extremely hard-hitting statement, but to my professional mind is that we are actually at war because these people are attacking us.
Yeah.
It's just so many people in society have not yet woken up to how dangerous the encroaching New World Order is.
That's right. And the first step towards remedying the situation is to look at the problem and recognize it for what it is. And I totally agree with you, Brian.
This is the beauty of the system, that on one hand we are faced with quite, to many people, a very frightening beast which is attacking us. And you say, how can we possibly deal with this? But what the beast cannot stand up against is exposure.
Yeah, that's right.
What they are doing is done in the dark. It's hidden. It's done by deceit.
Mm.
And the moment enough people know what is happening, their plan is finished, because it's a covert plan. It can only work when it's hidden from view. All we have to do is wake up enough people to actually understand, one, they're being attacked, and two, how it's being done, and then we have the opportunity to overturn the process. Now, I'd like to give this one to your listeners, if I may. In Britain, myself linked together with a number of other people who are all fighting this new order.
Mm-hmm.
We've set up another group, which is called the British Constitution Group. We have a website, which is www.thebcgroup, that's all one word, thebcgroup.org.uk.
Right.
In January, the group set up a conference up in the Midlands, which we had over 500 people, and our policy of the speakers was to tell the audience the truth, the hard truth about what was happening. Since that day, we're having trouble coping with the number of emails, telephone calls, and other inquiries. And we have another conference set up in London, which is on the 13th of June, and it's in Euston, but people can get the detail from the website.
Mm-hmm.
And what we are calling for is lawful rebellion. Now, this is a very precise term, because we want people to rebel against the imposition of the new order, but we are saying that it has to be done lawfully.
Right.
And it also has to be done peacefully.
Yep.
Because if we resort to violence, we give the other side the opportunity to enact all of the anti-terrorism laws and the civil unrest laws, which will mean they can achieve the clampdown.
Yeah, that's right.
If I was to be speaking to you 6 months ago, I'd be very concerned about what was happening. I'm still concerned, but I am now very encouraged by the fact we are seeing more and more people wake up. But what we need them to do is to be brave enough to start to act. And the simplest thing for them to do is tell every other person they can what they know about what is happening, and to get them to say no whenever they get the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very encouraging words, Brian, to round things up on. And again, I want to just mention and relay people to the two main websites that you mentioned, CP for Common Purpose, cpexposed.com, and thebcgroup.org.uk for much more information. You mentioned an upcoming conference later on in June, but then again, you'll be this coming Friday up at Heathrow in London at the AV2 conference as well, Brian. And will you continue talking more about NLP and the connections to Common Purpose on this lecture as well, Brian?
Well, excuse me, I will be doing that. Firstly, I say that the conference is excellent. What I'm very, very impressed